He's just coming in now, Councillor McConville. Gemma, we are live on YouTube now.
Well, good evening, councillors. It's nice to see you all in front of us again. Once again, we have missed you all. I hope you've missed us as well. Big meeting tonight. But first of all, I'd like to announce that my chaplain, Father Stephen Bold, retired at the end of August. I have asked Father Alex Sabba of the Christ Church, the Guildhall Street Church, if he would be my chaplain for the ensuing months, which he has agreed, but we won't see him tonight. I think he's still unpacking. So welcome everybody. I just want to read out to you the webcasting notice. Please note that this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. Please could all members ensure their microphone is set to mute unless they are speaking to reduce any background noise. It is important to remember that you may only speak when called by the chairman. Also, ensure any other devices nearby are switched to silent mode as they can be distracting. Members should use the raised hand button when they wish to speak. When it is your turn to speak, I will call your name and invite you to speak. Once you've spoken, I will flatten your hand. If during the vote there are technical problems, the committee services officer will contact the relevant member so that they are able to give their vote over the phone, which will be on the loudspeaker so that other members can hear. If any member loses connection during this meeting, then the meeting will be paused for a period of up to 3 minutes in order to give the relevant member the opportunity to rejoin the meeting. It is recommended to councillors that they should they struggle to rejoin the meeting online, that they rejoin the meeting via the telephone number given, in order to assist with the smooth commencement of the meeting. Thank you. Right, now I'm going to invite Councillor Monk to say a few words in thoughts of Councillor Robert Bliss, who passed away recently. And after Councillor Monk has spoken, we will just pause for a moment just to reflect on Councillor Bliss's work in the district. Councillor Monk.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, Robert joined this council, or became leader of this council, is more to the point, when we were at rock bottom. And it was due to his efforts that we are able to survive as well as we do today. He actually set the idea of priorities and financial controls and saw them through. So from becoming what we were then, probably the basket case of Kent, we've come out to be one of the top districts in the county, and it was all down to him and his leadership. And that leadership was very, very nice. He was a very urbane man, and he was very humorous, a very droll sense of humour, and he led us all through those times with great aplomb. He also had a little while with KCC, and during that time he's looked after Sandgate Principality, which he loved to call it, by getting the Sandgate Parish Council offices to combine with the KCC library, which he was always very proud of. He was also, talking of Sandgate, the Principality of, he was also chairman of that until quite recently, and he enjoyed every moment of it. I think you will go a long way to find a person who has committed as much of his time to local government as Robert did. He thoroughly enjoyed it. He was a very nice man to work for, and I'm sure we will all miss him. We recognised him as a council by making him an alderman, which crowned his time with us. And now, as the chairman said, if we just take a moment to reflect. Thank you.
None received this evening, thank you.
Are there any declarations of interest? No? Right, we move on to item 3, and I'll just read out some notes here. We now turn to item 3, which is a report relating to the Places and Policies local plan. Before I open the debate, I would like to make an important announcement for the benefit of all councillors and members of the public. It is not possible to propose amendments to the Places and Policies local plan, as set out in section 4 of the report. The legal position is clear. The law says that local authorities must either adopt the plan with the inspector's recommendations in full or not adopt the plan at all. There is no option to modify the plan further. That would be beyond the council's legal powers. Now, councillors, do I have a proposer?
Madam Chairman, I would like to propose that the recommendations in report A/20/01 are approved by this council. And I would say that it's probably the most important policy that I have ever had to deal with in my 25 years in this council. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, councillor. Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, councillor. Right, the item now is open for debate. Who wishes to speak? Councillor Wybrow.
Thank you. I understand this report represents years of work, and I think all credit to the planning policy officers who have put an awful lot of effort into this, and it does include some good policies. I fully understand the importance of a council having a sound local plan, but I'm afraid I'm unable to support any plan that includes a policy to develop Prince's Parade. Ideally, I would like to have proposed an amendment to delete that policy, but I mean, I was already aware before this meeting that that wasn't an option. It's not all about Prince's Parade. The local plan process is supposed to be a democratic process, and yet I think it's fair to say that most of the residents in the district would not have been aware that the consultations were taking place, and they may well have struggled to engage with the process even if they were aware of it. I've been contacted over the past few weeks by a number of residents who've been dismayed to discover that the land at Station Road in Hythe has been included as a development site under policy UA14, and now it's too late for them to make their views known on issues such as traffic and harm to the environment. If the government's proposed changes to planning go ahead, there will be a lot more emphasis on local plans and a lot less on planning applications. So I think it will be vital that we do a better job of making sure that our residents have a chance to express their views. I will be voting against this. I understand the implications of doing that, and I'm really, really sorry to have been put in the position where I have to vote against this, as Councillor Monk said, very, very important policy document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as it says in section 1.4, this policy has been through several iterations and consultations over a period of time, and I've seen most of those and sat through most of those, and I can only commend the officers for their diligence and hard work and seeing it through, because it is a lot of hard work, and I believe people have had the opportunity to consult, but regrettably on so many consultations people don't do so until it's too late. I'm pleased that it went forward in front of the government inspector, and I'm pleased that the inspector didn't find too many faults with it, and the modifications that he recommended have been put in place. I'd be very worried if we did not pass this paper tonight, because it sets the future for us. We know there's a demand for housing. We've put in there what we believe our housing needs are going to be. It's going to be tough to meet that target. And I'm just a bit concerned with new consultations coming up by government suggesting they should be increased, that if we don't pass this, we won't have the opportunity to push back on anything that might come at us in the forward. So I really hope we all pass this one through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Martin. John Martin. Jim, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me say thank you to the officers who have completed this gargantuan piece of work. Like Councillor Godfrey, I attended the inspectors' sessions, made a presentation, and I have to say that from that process, I was concerned about local democracy and people's voices in the process, or indeed lack of voice in the process. It was remote, it was distant, and the inspector didn't seem to me to be particularly concerned about people's views. However, it was, I'm not criticising the process, it was carried out as it should be. Moving on, the policy, I fully understand the implications of the policy, but unfortunately, I cannot support it. Certainly since over the past 2 weeks, many people in Hythe have written to me expressing their concerns and dismay. There are approximately 800 homes in the policy for Hythe, and you know, on that doesn't include any windfall sites. So, you know, they're all concerned about the same thing, that Hythe will turn into a building site from one end to the other, and we will lose what is so important about that place. So sadly, Madam Chairperson, I will not be supporting the policy, but I will be supporting the people of Hythe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor McConville.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I would too echo the sentiments of Councillors Whybrow and Martin. I mean, I fully appreciate, you know, all the work that has gone into this. You know, it is a huge document, and at that same time, I think it is difficult for me as, you know, well, not quite newly elected, but obviously, you know, the majority of the work that has gone into forming this plan obviously happened before myself and a lot of other councillors were elected. So it is sort of, it does still seem quite detached. I think if, you know, the inspector had found the plan sound from the outset, and we didn't obviously have to do some work for the inclusion of the Gypsy and Traveller sites and so on and so forth, then, you know, we'd probably be having this meeting a lot sooner rather than having it now. And I think that detachment would have been sort of a bit clearer for myself as a new councillor, saying actually, you know, this isn't something that I've had involvement in, and it, you know, it would have sat a lot easier with me, you know, in being happy to not be a part of it. But sadly, I mean, there are parts of this plan that, you know, there are policies within the plan that just do not sit comfortably with me. So, you know, it is a very difficult decision to say that, you know, I cannot support it, even though I fully understand the importance of it and what it means and how, you know, we need to have a local plan. But I think to endorse the plan at the detriment of those other policies, you know, which, you know, we've been consistent in message in opposing, I just don't see a way forward that can happen. You know, as well as the specific policies on place, I mean, there's been some sort of, there's been changes at the inspector's request on various things, especially to do with climate change, that sit within the national policy framework, which, you know, as well, I take issue with the way the national government is sort of directing climate change policy through local authorities. So, you know, I take issue with that. So with all those sort of issues compiled together, sadly, I cannot support. But I do understand the full implications of the plan and the importance of having one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McConville. Councillor Hollingsby?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, I suppose I look at the other end of the spectrum. I've been involved in this plan ever since the inception. It has been out to consultation. The parish councils, the town councils, individual councillors and the public have had every opportunity to make comments. And I just want to make a few statements, I suppose, or comments. I like a number of you, I'm sure. I've had emails from people in Hythe. And what I would say to those people, that if this plan is approved, and if these sites come forward, then that is the time to bring up the points that they want to and make their objections. That is the opportunity to do that. And they will have that opportunity when and hopefully we do pass this. It is a very important document. I sat through most of the inspectors' sessions. I listened to Dr. Burrell talking about Princess Parade and another of other people, I think Councillor Martin at the time. I felt the inspector listened to all views very carefully, considered all of those views, and he came back. Okay, so there were some modifications, main modifications, but that happens to, I've been looking to other plans in other areas, and that is exactly what happens in other areas. So I don't think it's any different here. And I think, I mean, people are saying they understand the importance of this, but it seems to me that perhaps they don't. I mean, I think what we could end up with, if we do not pass this, is developers coming forward and putting in planning applications for sites that we don't want, for sites that are not in the right place, and we will have very little control over that. And I don't think that is anything that people want. And I was looking at a planning guidance document published by the LGA, and I thought this, and I'd just like to perhaps finish with this sentence saying, planning is about upholding the wider public interest for the benefit of the whole community and not just individual constituents or particular interests. And I think that we should all bear that in mind. I think that this is a very good document. The officers have spent hours and hours producing it, putting it out to consultation, looking at all the responses from the consultation, taking them into account where they felt it was appropriate. So I really don't think any more could be done, and I certainly will be voting in favour of this document.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsby. Councillor Fuller?
Yeah, I'd like to join in thanking all of the officers and councillors for the enormous amount of work that's been done on this document, and indeed in bringing us up to speed on planning. I understand the requirements for a 5-year land supply. I understand that if this document fails to go through, there's the potential of a developer free-for-all, for want of a better phrase. But there's two problems. One of those problems is obviously Prince's Parade. Yes, there was consultation on Prince's Parade, and every single consultation has come back with a massive no. And we're talking about 150 houses here that aren't going to benefit local people. They're not going to be affordable to local people. So we're not putting people first. It's a vanity project. I'm sorry, that's all it is. That one aside, the discussion about consultation is very important. Policies like this obviously have a process. I would assume, and there's no reflection on the officers here, I would assume that process has been set out by government. The fact that we've now got hundreds of people in Hive or anywhere suddenly turning around and going, I didn't know this was happening. Why is this happening to my, insert area here? This is terrible. Shows you that the process is complete codswallop. It doesn't work. If it worked, nobody would be complaining now, or if they were, they would be complaining about something we've already dealt with in the document. So as important as this policy is, as fantastic as the work of the officers is, the very framework within which it sits in is flawed. If it wasn't flawed, Prince's Parade wouldn't exist. If it wasn't flawed, there wouldn't be a multitude of complaints filling our inboxes now. Is that a reflection on councillors and officers? I don't really think it is. I suspect it's a central government thing, except for maybe Prince's Parade, where I'm still yet to be convinced of any valid reason for going ahead with that benefits anybody. And that includes the sports centre, because up the road from me is where it should be. Again, really grateful for all of the work that's involved, and it's with a heavy head that I will be voting against this, but I have to on principle, because the whole thing is flawed. The whole premise upon which it's based is flawed. In a sense, I'd have to vote against any local plan that didn't actually have a proper consultation. And as I say, proper in the sense that it allows people to input their views based on a framework that works. And I'm sorry that the planning officers and everybody involved gets caught up in the fact that it doesn't work, because they won't have designed the framework. They would have just followed the rules to the letter and done the maximum that they can to get a good places and policies local plan. But unfortunately, specifically because of Prince's Parade and shoddy consultation, that's not what we have here. So that's my 2 cents, as they say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Treloar.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to agree with Gary, Councillor Fuller, entirely on that. It's a bit like, I don't know, was it Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the plans for the intergalactic superhighway are hidden in the basement of a building somewhere on some planet. Unfortunately, this is a system that we're working with, and it's not democratic. And it's so shortly after we were elected, and I went to the consultation on the transport and climate, and the conversation was, whether people knew they could come and talk about it, whether the conversation did not seem to be where we're at with these things, even nationally. And even since then, the conversation has changed even more, things have changed even more. So we're dealing with a local plan that's been designed over the past few years, prior to us declaring a climate and ecological emergency. Now, then they're not shallow words. I don't want to have to go through the reality of what all of that means again, but it is an emergency, and this means a real shift in our district in the coming decades, and this plan just doesn't sufficiently address those things. you know, flood risk or transport, it's still got personal car use at the centre of its plan. And we even know, and we're being told, you know, by government select committees, that we need to move away from personal car use. So we've got this real like rift between, you know, what experts, which you know, some corners of government are telling us, yet we're working with this really old clunky system. So I don't think it goes nearly enough on climate or transport, particularly those things. But also I can't support a plan that has Princess Parade. And I've also been alerted to real concern in the community about the development in Hythe on Station Road. Councillor Hollingsby stated the LGA statement about local plans, that, you know, they're for the wider public interest and for the whole community. You know, what about, you know, if it's not adequately taking, you know, climate into consideration, transport, things like that, well, then it's not taking into account the community of the future, you know, the future generations beyond, you know, what we're seeing in the here and the now. So I just want to keep bringing everyone back to, is this a plan that is really fit for the future? And I just don't think it is in those respects. So that's why I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Treloar. Councillor Mullard?
Can you hear me now? Firstly, I think what I should say is when we had this agenda issued, I did begin to look through it on the tablet on my machine and decided it was a very, very big agenda that I couldn't have open in one machine and zoom in another one, which is what I would normally have. Fortunately, I was offered a hard copy, and even more fortunately, one of the members of staff lives in the road next to me, which I didn't appreciate. And she came around yesterday with the agenda. I'm going to show you it here. It's 556 pages. It's thicker than a Bible. It's extremely thick, and I defy anybody to have read through that. I certainly haven't read it through. I did go through it fast this afternoon and highlighted one or two points. It's too thick, really, for anybody to look at. Now, having said that, the people that wrote it, and I mean the inspector and his team, are obviously intelligent guys, and they've looked at everything and considered everything. And of course, the staff have sewn it together very nicely. It's a very good document, but I personally have not seen it before. That's in the last 2 years I haven't seen it. I don't know why, but I've not been consulted. It also doesn't really directly have any effect on my own ward, on Dymchurch, perhaps a bit in St Mary's Bay, but not too much. It's really Folkestone and Hythe and places like that it really affects. So the fact it doesn't really affect me is perhaps why I haven't heard many comments from my ward members. My gut feeling is that I would love to have studied it more. I haven't found anything in there, I must say, I haven't found anything in my scanning through it that I've disagreed with, because I have to accept that housing and etc. is needed. I'm now torn between abstaining and voting for. And I think, Madam Chairman, that on reflection, I will vote for this, but with the reservations that really I haven't studied it, and I'm sure most people in my ward haven't heard of it at all. But let's say I'll vote for it with those reservations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mullard. Councillor Wimble.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Where do I start in this one? First of all, it's my portfolio brief, this, and as Councillor Mullard says, over 500 pages. I have gone through just about every single page. And yes, as a ward councillor for New Romney, I note that, you know, some of the land in New Romney is earmarked for development. But what you've got to remember, in the same way that the people in Hyde don't want Prince's Parade, I don't want people building on our car park down here at Littlestone. By voting this through, we have the opportunity to fight these when it actually comes to planning permissions. I've already, as many people on the council who sit on planning know, we had a little victory last time round when they tried to build some houses there because we could fight it. If we don't vote for this through, I'm not sure if members, Councillor Mullard stating it doesn't affect him, it affects everybody here because we basically lose control of our planning, which means that central government can build what they want, where they want, when they want. If a developer wants to come in and say, I want to build 3,000 homes at the back of Dymchurch, and it meets the government's requirements for new properties, they will say, okay, let's build it on that greenfield site. There's so many things. The environment, we're a council that's trying to be as green as possible. This, if you've read about the environmental impacts and climate change, natural environment, historic environment, health and well-being, the economy, community and transport, it's all in there. What this document does is it gives you a voice. It gives you a voice to come to council on any application, whether it be Prince's Parade or Great Stone Car Park on my ward, and say, we disagree with this because, and then you can fight it on the grounds of planning, you can fight it on the grounds of environment, climate change, anything you want. If you do not vote for this, I cannot stress enough how, well, it'll be catastrophic for the council, basically. They might say we want 150 homes. Well, the council owns some land at Prince's Parade. We just build them there. We might want to build even more homes there. We lose control of our planning. It is that important. Now, I know some of you don't sit on the planning committee, and some of you might think that, it's a bit testing to sit through all these plans. But we've shown time and time again, I know Councillor Martin, who sits next to me when we're in session, and we take this quite seriously. We look into all the background information. We've overturned officers. I know I personally have overturned something like 6 officers' recommendations because we are acting for the people who voted for us. We have the opportunity to go against recommendations if we have this policy. If we don't have this policy, you've lost it. Central government will put what they want, when they want, where they want. It really is as black and white as that. And I know I might sound that I'm being over dramatic, but the Secretary of State took a long time looking at this. There were some things in the original plan. When they first of all, they identified the 50 sites across the district for potential development. The Traveller site was one thing. We've overcome that. That was one of the key sticking points. Say we voted against this plan, what's to stop the government saying, do you know what, we need another 50 bases for travellers. We put one at Prince's Parade. Nothing at all. They say, you've got the land there, we're going to put the caravans there. At least with this, we've got a say. So I implore you, I get why people might want to abstain from voting or vote against it, but it's not turkeys voting for Christmas. It's councillors voting for a say on what's built and developed in this district. So, I would have great pleasure in commending the Places and Policies local plan to you. And I just really hope that it's passed, because if it isn't, we're all in trouble.
Thank you, Councillor Wimble. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Councillor Wimble highlighted some very interesting and factual stuff there, as did Councillor Hollingsby, who I think stole my script for tonight, because I was going to home in and say that this document gives us control. Councillor Wimble said the W's, want, when, where people can build. With this, we've got control on where things can be built and how they can be built. Credit to the officer team for this fine work, and obviously the portfolio holders who also had input. So I'm happy to support this document. It will give us control that we need, what we want. The future's bright, and like I said, I'm really keen to support this, and well done to all involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davison.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to echo the comments that councillors have made in terms of thanks to the officers for all their work on this. I have to say some of the comments that have been made by councillors who've not read the document or have read the document are kind of quite jaw-dropping this evening. I won't be supporting the plan tonight. I think it's a missed opportunity. What we need is a radical plan to address the problems that the district has. And unfortunately, this set of documents contains many things that are weak on the things that we need to do most about. In my own ward, where we see development, we always see luxury development. And in this plan, affordable housing is actually reduced and curtailed. And we should see commitments to genuinely affordable housing and social housing all through the housing sections of this document, and they're not there. We need to tackle climate change. It's a climate crisis, and the provisions in this document are watered down in relation to that. And the inspector's comments reflect the failings of the government in that regard. It's quite clear that it's been watered down in certain places in relation to zero carbon homes, for example, because of the government's position and the way that they have watered down the things that we so desperately need. We're failing to look after our heritage properly at the moment as well. And I don't think we're seeing enough about how we're going to look after that, restore it in the plan either. It also contains the development of Prince's Parade, and we as Labour councillors stood against that, and we continue to do that. So I won't be supporting the plan tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shube.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I share the concerns of many of my colleagues who've already spoken. I do particularly share the frustrations about some of the policies that we've not been able to go as far as we might have liked to due to the central government position. I can't support this on the basis of that it includes Prince's Parade, so I can't vote for it. However, I am fully conscious of the implications if we don't adopt it, the implications for the whole district and the risk of uncontrolled development. So I won't be voting against it either. So I will be abstaining on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, thanks to the dedicated team of officers who since 2015 have been working and developing, and to all those councillors and past administrations who have been involved in it. We all know that the planning system is deeply, deeply flawed. In an ideal world, and that utopia that's sometimes there, we would see the infrastructure put in place before the homes and the residences and the businesses are all developed. And there'll be a much more holistic approach. With the current proposals and the changes that are being planned, I suspect the system is likely to get worse before it gets better. We as a district council are part of, I think, a very forward-thinking and caring council, and that's why developments such as Ottercall are setting a benchmark for good practice and will provide our residents and even new people coming to the area with a wonderful place to live, a benchmark, so to speak. However, a project such as this takes a long, the policy such as this takes a long, long gestation period. And obviously it's gone through at least two administrations. Now that is a process that is actually imposed on this council, and officers and councillors who have worked through it have adhered to the rules as recognised by the planning inspector. There was consultation, but and I know during my time as mayor, the office, the planning in New Romney, the planning officer team came down. There were workshops. There were people saying, Dave Whittington and the team came down to say, this is what we're planning to do. People were attended. It was reasonably well attended, but you cannot make people respond. You can send out something to every single home, but you'll be lucky if you get 20% of people responding, and that's a fact if you talk to anyone. So, I mean, yes, there is a question, what is proper consultation? But within the rules as such, I think the officers have actually done as much they could to engage with local residents over a period of years. And that is the thing, this has taken a long time to come. Now, Councillor Wimble rightly referred to, and others, that we can't, we may not necessarily agree with everything that is in this document. It's a huge document. Both Councillor Wimble and I were strongly pushing to oppose two developments in the ward where we represent people, and that's entirely everyone here. You're entirely entitled to represent, but also your local people who voted for you. But also we need to take a look at the bigger picture, and if we do not have a plan in place, the mayhem that may result from undisciplined, unsustainable development over a period of time will be something that this council will be remembered for. Not all the wonderful good works and projects, looking at extending our social housing, looking at delivering high quality private rental opportunities, looking at developing a wonderful new garden town, not all the really amazing work like that. It will be on the fact that we allowed our district to be a blank page for inappropriate development. And I think the people who voted for all of us at that point will say, why are they there? We need to actually set the boundaries, and this plan will do that. And we will all, where we feel that it's inappropriate within our wards or generally, we will have the opportunity to argue against each application that comes forward and use planning law on a case-by-case basis, and even consider putting fairly severe conditions on those applications if they won't go through, to actually improve the quality. Some of the sites might not be appropriate, but the sites that are in there were whittled down from a large number because there was a call out to all landowners to bring put their land forward to be included in this plan, and the planners went through and sifted through down to the few that you see there. So I will be voting for it. I don't necessarily agree with all of the sites that have been proposed, but I think the principle of having this guiding document is far, far more important than looking at the smaller minutiae and saying, okay, in this particular place. And I think I'll be doing a disservice to the residents of the whole district, not just my ward, the whole district, if I voted against it.
Can I interrupt? The time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. Councillor Philip Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Interesting listening to all of my colleagues' comments on this. First of all, I have some empathy with Councillor Terry Mullard. It is a massive document. I was fortunate to be able to get a hard copy because knowing the problems I have with my computer, I'd never got through 500 pages on there. Probably in my 16 years on the council.
Councillor Martin, can you hold on just a moment, please?
We've actually lost Councillor and Mrs Hollingsby by the looks of it. Just checking, Councillor Hollingsby, are you still there?
Yes.
You're on mute. Just checking that you're still there. Okay, great.
Right, thank you, Councillor Martin. Can you continue, please? Sorry for that interruption.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Madam Chairman. As I say, it's one of the most comprehensive and certainly the longest document. And I don't know how, but between 11 o'clock this morning and before the meeting, I did manage to actually, I can't say detailed read, but certainly went through every single page on there. I think the emphasis has already been made on control. If we don't support this, we will have serious problems ahead. I'm very, very surprised to hear certain councillor colleagues, almost suggesting there's been no or very little consultation. There has, as we know, been a very widespread consultation. We cannot blame the people that bring this to us, you know, because people can't be bothered to respond to consultations. That's an individual thing. I remember when I first came into local politics, well, politics generally, because it's actually been a passion of for my whole life. Somebody said to me, politics is like a box of chocolates. Because you don't like one of them, you don't throw them all out. And people that are going to vote against this because they don't like Prince's Parade should remember that, because you could be endangering the whole future of our council. So I will happily support this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Tricanius.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to echo comments from so many of the councillors this evening to thank all of the officers and everyone that's been involved in creating this document. It is very large. I feel very, very, very naughty that so many trees were cut down in order for me to have a physical version, because it was very difficult and very hard for me to be able to read it off of a screen. When we say, as politicians, we understand the difficulties that if this is voted down and the dangers that will happen if this is voted down. Of course, we understand it because we're politicians. That's why we're here. But this is not just us. This is about the general public. If you'd said to me 10 years ago, I would be sat here today as a councillor, I would have laughed at you. Anyone who would have known me would have laughed about this, because when you're just a normal, ordinary, general member of the public that live in your everyday life, you do not take much notice of what's going on. That's unfortunately why we only have 20% response when it comes to our consultations. It's not necessarily something to be proud of. I think it is a little bit of a failure on our part that we're not doing as much as possible to keep that going up. And hopefully over a course of the time that we're all here in this administration, we can raise that consultation process for anything that comes up, when it's planning permission or no matter what it is later in the future. So I absolutely understand the dangers, because of course not a single one of us, any of us elected, whether we are red, green, blue, none of us were elected to allow this district to become a free-for-all for developers to saliva over. However, some of us were elected with certain things that we would never be able to shift, where our principles, that's where it sits. We can't go any further. We're not willing to budge. And at the end of the day, there is this thing where it's black and white for so many. They only see it black and white. So for myself, to be truly honest and black and white, I will vote against this, because principles I'm not willing to budge on, and I'm not willing to sit on the fence and abstain over it. Of course, all colleagues who wish to abstain, that is not a besmirchment of themselves, because it's down to them as individual councillors. But I will vote against it. And to be truthful, we know it will go through. There are the numbers for it to go forward, no matter those of us, unless there's a massive rebellion, which I doubt very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's with a heavy heart this evening I will be voting against this. The reason being, I believe one of the structures of building should be community. Not only building within the community being built, building within the community existing. And I feel that it's not been achieved. It's been a bugbear of mine since last May. I've kept on about it. Transport situation hasn't really been sorted, and I believe neither has climate change and modern housing. There's a scope here to build some fantastic modern houses, and I'm afraid I don't think it'll be done. As I say, with a heavy heart, we'll be voting against it. But thank you so much to all the officers and all the work you've put into this, but I will be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wing. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is very difficult. I know a lot of people have heartfelt concerns about this, and nothing's going to be perfect. I think Councillor Patricia Rolfe was very eloquent in the way she was saying about her local area and how she's concerned, but she's got to take it in the round. And And Councillor Monk knows this. You've got to take it in the round. And I read through it today for the first time for a long while. And I'm not happy about everything. Shoreline management plans, which are close to my heart, they had us listed down as managed realignment. No, we're not. We're holding the line now. That's changed and evolved. And so will the plan change and evolve as things evolve around it. But it gives us a framework. It gives us a structure to work on, which we do need. And I'm just very concerned that people, for the right reasons in some cases from their point of view, are going to vote against this. It'll be a shame in the sense that we can't gird ourselves with this protection. I think those who actually abstain, I've got more time for in that context. But pride goes before a fall. We've got to take this overall for the benefit of the district, else we might have to, shall we say, live with the consequences. But I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Councillor Gain.
Thank you, Chairman. I, like a lot of people, have some difficulty in this. I don't like Prince's Parade being in it. There's several other sites I'm not overly keen on, but you have to put that against the fact that if we don't have a plan, we could have a free-for-all. My question is this: on one of the plans, UA10, the cherry picker site, those houses are up for sale. So what's the point in having a policy on an area that's already been built on? So I hope you can answer that. I'm still listening to the debate at the moment, so I've not made up my mind.
Thank you, Councillor Gain. Councillor Carey.
Thank you. Good evening. I wonder, as Councillor Hollingsby has said, whether people really do understand the implications of having no local plan. And it's all very well to be ideologically pure and to stand by what you said in your leaflets. But actually, what was said earlier by Councillor Fuller and Councillor Wimble is absolutely true. That if you don't have a local plan, you have no control. And last September, when some of us went on a tour to senior housing to learn what from others' experience, we went past something quite shocking. And our planning inspector, the planning consultant who was with us, said that we were going through an area where all the councillors in the majority had been elected on a no development at all ticket, and they voted down everything. And what they ended up with was the developers building on any field they cared to buy, going to the planning inspector saying, this council hasn't allocated sufficient housing for its needs. And the only infrastructure they were required to do was an ugly roundabout. Now, I don't want to be in that position for this district. And I think it's meaningless to say you understand the implications and still to vote against this, because as Councillor Wimble said, it's not saying you agree with all the sites, it's merely a filter to the next stage. It's saying you disagree with all the other sites, because the only people who are going to be happy for more than 5 minutes if we vote this down are going to be the developers and the people who'd quite like to have a caravan site somewhere. And if we don't have this local plan in place, they will have a clear run. And I too would like to thank the officers. I'd like to thank Adrian Toffs and Mr. Whittington. I think they've done a splendid job. We all have to operate within the law, and whichever government was in power, they'd be expecting us to allocate more place for houses, and houses of all type, not just luxury houses has been said, but houses that are genuinely affordable, houses for the fastest growing segment, demographic segment in our country, which is the 85+ group. They need housing that's built for their needs. Young families that actually want to have somewhere with a garden, people who are sofa surfing, couples who would just like to set up their own home. We need more housing, we know we do, and the local plan is the way we get it, and we get it with the infrastructure, and we do well, and we can do even better. But a first step has to be saying yes to this plan. And so whether you abstain or whether you vote for, you are at least doing something for people. If you vote against, you are actually going against the interests of all those people who've said they don't like a particular site or whatever, because that particular site isn't going to go away. It's just not going to be able to be regulated in any meaningful way by this council. So please vote for.
Thank you, Councillor Carey. Does everybody have the chance to speak? Yes? Councillor Prater, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just thought I'd wait this time. Although there's a lot I can accept in this plan, and I agree with others that it's on the whole a good document and certainly a very large document. I'm afraid that despite that which has been said by other people, I cannot and will not accept voting for a plan that contains AU18, which is the inclusion of Prince's Parade as a development site. This is not one line in a plan that we can come back to later. The option to oppose Prince's Parade in development in planning has passed. It was agreed by a previous council I did not sit on. The option to vote against Prince's Parade development at council has passed last summer, and we won. The majority were against, and it should have stopped there, and yet it still goes on. So I'm afraid I'm not going to take a lecture on how to influence developments such as Prince's Parade outside this plan. Now, on joining Cabinet, I and Councillor Wybrow did so only on the basis that we could vote however we felt fit, both for or against proposals at Cabinet and in Council. The leader not only accepted but agreed that point, but insisted reasonably on an agreement that we were consistent in our approach and didn't vote one way at Cabinet and differently elsewhere. It was wise and a reasonable thing to do, and I will keep my word as he would expect me to do. I voted against the adoption of this local plan at Cabinet, and having voted against there, and with Prince's Parade remaining in the plan now, I can't and won't be changing my vote now. I'll be voting against the plan, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, we now before we take the vote.
I get to sum up, Madam Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councillor Monk.
Thank you. Right, well, it has gone pretty much as I expected. I think that there has been some very reasonable points brought forward in debate from both sides. I actually agree with a lot of you who aren't going to vote with it about the planning system itself and how we land up where we are. But that's as far as I agree with you. I do believe that, as I said right at the beginning, this is the most important document I've ever had before the council. Part of what it is and it addresses a lot of the things that some of the councillors want. When we get planning permission for Otterpool Park, which is also dependent on this going through tonight, then a lot of the things that we're after, zero carbon, come right to the fore. The building of truly affordable housing, as we are the landowner, comes in our remit. I have said this several times, and I don't think I've quite got across how much we can do, because we are the landowner. We not only will, and I have actually expressed the fact that several of the groups that aren't mine expect to do well and take over the council at the next election. And if they do, they will be pleased that this plan has gone through, because Otterpool Park will be their financial stability going forward. So I think on so many levels, it looks after the housing numbers, and not necessarily the new numbers that the government are proposing, but certainly up to the 738. and it gives us total control. We've never had so much control as we can have going forward. I do recommend to you this document. I also would say to you that search your heart, and if you can't vote for it, don't vote against it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Monk. Just before we go to the vote, Susan wishes to make a statement. Please, Susan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Evening, members. In advance of the vote being taken on this important policy document this evening, and for the public record, I can advise members that had there been insufficient or inadequate consultation, this would have been picked up by the inspector as part of his process of testing the robustness of the process and the resulting document. If that had been found to be an issue, he would not have found the plan sound. I can therefore offer reassurance to members that officers undertook appropriate consultation on the matter, and I hope that this is helpful. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Right, now we'll go to the vote. Gemma, please.
So members, I'm going to just read your names as always, if you could just state whether you're for, against or abstaining. Thank you. Councillor Mrs Berry.
For.
Councillor Danny Brooke.
For.
Councillor Miss Carey.
For.
Councillor Collier.
For.
Councillor Davison.
Against.
Councillor Dorrell. Sorry, Catonius. Sorry.
Against.
Councillor Field. Councillor Field, are you with us?
For.
Councillor Fuller.
Against.
Councillor Gain.
For.
Councillor Goddard.
For.
Councillor Godfrey.
For.
Councillor Hills.
For.
Councillor Mrs Hollingsby.
For.
Councillor Keane.
Against.
Councillor J Martin.
Against.
Councillor P Martin.
For.
Councillor McConville.
Against.
Councillor Mead.
Against.
Councillor Mayers.
For.
Councillor Monk.
For.
Councillor Mullard. Councillor Mullard. Are you with us, Councillor Mullard?
For.
Councillor
For,
Field?
you got that?
Yeah, I got that, thank you. Councillor Field?
For.
Councillor Prater?
Against.
Councillor Rolfe?
For.
Councillor Shue?
Abstain.
Councillor Treloar?
Against.
Councillor Wade?
Against.
Councillor Wybrow?
Against.
Councillor Wimble?
For.
Councillor Wing?
Against.
Oh.
Thank you, members. That's 12 for, sorry, 17 for, 12 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you, councillors. That's passed. And thank you for attending the meeting and taking part in the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Keep
Chairman.
safe, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.